Who is this walking? Who is this one walking? I don't know. They're not cool. Oh. Yeah. Oh. Page 1, introductory prayers. Om Jnanatinandasya Jnanatinandasya Chakshurmilitamyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya-Manavishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swapadam Vandeham Vishwarupa Shri Jagatapadakam Shri Gurum Bhagavata Shrirupam Sarvadam Sadhanam Srivam Sadvaitam Savadunam Durjana Savitam Vijayam Yadevam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Saranadaitam Shri Vishnakarikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabhankar Jagapate Gopishana Krishna Taptakanchana Gurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrjavan Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Vedana Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 28. So we're going to read 11 verses to start off with, and then if no one has any comments on any of the verses or the reports, we'll just go on to the next verse 34. So we'll start on text 28, chapter 7. Page 403. Page 403. 403. Yeah, it's right. Okay, I'm going to chapter 7, text 28. We can read the Sanskrit and English translation together. Yesham tantargatam papam jananam punya karmani tevam vamo niyamtam bhajantyam. Translation. Persons who have Christ in their previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, and who are freed from the duality of pollution, engage themselves in our service with determination. Excellent. Jalamana mokshara mam ashrita yatanti te brahma tadvidoksha krishna adhyatma karma chakira. Translation. Intelligent persons who are intended for the creation of old age and death take refuge in the devotional service. They are actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental and fruitive activities. Translation. Those who know me as me more, as the governing principle of material manifestation, who know me as one underlying all the demigods, as the one subsisting all the everlasting, and in the steadfast mind, understanding and knowing even at the time of death. Inta karma kin adyatma kin karma purushadata karma added buddha chakin protas ahidaivam kin uchayate. Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, the Supreme Person, what is Brahma? What is the self? What are the food activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me. Page 2. Anyagyatam gopram dehismi madhusudana priyam kale chikatam geyosmi yatadruhi. Translation. How does this go to sacrifice within the body? And in which part does he live? Madhusudana. And how can those engaged in devotional service know him at the time of death? Text 3. Sri Bhagavan Aksharam Brahma Parama Svabhavo Jnana Manushyate Buddha Bhavo Tava Karalo Visarga Karma Samjita. Translation. The Supreme Lord says, the indestructible transcendental entity is called Brahma, and his eternal nature is called the Soul. Action pertaining to the development of these material bodies is called karma or fruitive activities. Adibhutam Shalava Adiyagyo Amitaras Deha Vitam. Translation. The physical nature is known to be endlessly beautiful. The universe is the cosmic form of the Supreme Lord. I am that Lord, which said that it has vomiting the heart of every thought being. Antakanisha Mahavidyas Mauram Kalimbaram Ya Prayati Sahapavam Yati Nasta Atra Samshaya. And whoever at the time of death quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. This there is no doubt. Excuse. Yam vapi smanan bhavam yajante kalevaram tavam hi vaiti kunteya sada dharma. Translation. Whatever state of being one represents a quits the body, that state he will attain perfectly. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu Mamanusmaravityasha Mayarkita Buddhe Mameshasvi Asamshaya. Translation. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of writing. With your activities dedicated to me, your mind intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. We can move back to text 20, chapter 7, text 20. 7?
We still have like 2 verses. 2. 2029. 20, yeah, you're right. Wait.
16. Translation. He who meditates on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged forever, undeviated from the path. He, O Bhagavad, is sure to reach me. That's not.
We're restarting.
We're
starting from 28 again.
Chapter 7, text
We did.
20. We will read the purpose.
We did
Starting chapter
28.
Text 20. Text 28.
Yeah.
Chapter 7. Okay. So we'll go back to the original verse where we started. And now we'll read the purpose. Translation of the purpose. Okay, so we're just doing 8 verses.
We did 10.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 8.
No, we read multiple times.
Been through 3 times already? Oh, okay. So the first text 28. Persons have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated and who are freed from the duality of illusion, engage themselves in my service with determination. 4. Those eligible for elevation to the transcendental position are mentioned in this verse. For those who are sinful, atheistic, foolish, and deceitful, it is very difficult to transcend the duality of desire and hate. Only those who have passed their lives and practicing in regulative principles of religion, who have acted piously and have conquered sinful reactions and accept devotional service, gradually rise to the pure knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And gradually they can meditate in trance on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the process of being situated on the spiritual platform. This elevation is possible in Krishna consciousness. In the association of pure devotees who can deliver one from illusion. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam that if one actually wants to be liberated, he must render service to the devotees. But one who associates with materialistic people is on the path leading to the darkest region of existence. All the devotees of the Lord traverse this earth just to recover the conditioned souls from their delusion. The impersonalists do not know that forgetting their constitutional position as subordinate to the Supreme Lord is the greatest violation of God's law. Unless one is reinstated in his own constitutional position, it is not possible to understand the Supreme Personality or be fully engaged in his transcendental loving service with determination. Text 29. Translation. Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation, old age, and death take refuge in me in devotional service. They are actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental and fluid activities. Purple. Birth, death, old age, and diseases affect this material body, but not the spiritual body. There is no birth, death, old age, and disease for the spiritual body. So one who attains the spiritual body becomes one of the associates of the Supreme Personality of God and engages in eternal devotional service. Sorry. So one who attains the spiritual body becomes one of the associates of the Supreme Personality of God and engages in eternal devotional service is really liberated. Aham Brahmasmi. I am spirit soul. It is said that one should understand that he is Brahman, spirit soul. This Brahman conception of life is also in devotional service, as described in this verse. Pure devotees are transcendentally situated on the Brahman platform, and they know everything about transcendental and material activities. Four kinds of impure devotees who engage themselves in the transcendental service of the Lord achieve their respective goals, and by the grace of the Supreme Lord, when they are fully Krishna conscious, they actually enjoy association with the Supreme Lord. But those who are worshippers of demigods never reach the Supreme Lord with the Supreme Planet. Even the less intelligent Brahman realized persons cannot reach the Supreme Planet of Krishna, known as the Goloka of Vrindavan. Only persons who perform activities in Krishna consciousness, are actually entitled to be called Brahman, because they are actually endeavoring to reach the Krishna planet. Such persons have no misgivings about Krishna, and thus they are actually Brahman. Those who are engaged in worshiping the form or arch of the Lord, or who are engaged in meditation on the Lord simply for liberation of material bondage, also know, by the grace of the Lord, the purports of Brahma, Buddha, etc., as, as explained by the Lord in the next chapter.
Translation. Those who know me as the Supreme Lord, as the governing principle of the material manifestation, who know me as the one underlying all the demigods, and as the one sustaining all sacrifices, can with steadfast mind understand and know me even at the time of death. Those who know me as the Supreme Lord, as the governing principle of the material manifestation, who know me as the one underlying all the demigods, and as the one sustaining all sacrifices, can with steadfast mind understand and know me even in the time of death. Persons acting in Krishna consciousness are never entirely deviated from the path of understanding the Supreme Personality of God. In the transcendental association of Krishna consciousness, one can understand how the Supreme Lord is the governing principle of the material manifestation. One becomes convinced of the Supreme Personality of God Himself, and at the time of death, such a Krishna conscious person can never forget Krishna. Naturally, he is thus promoted to the planet of the Supreme Lord, Golok Vrindavan. This seventh chapter particularly explains how one can become a fully Krishna conscious person. The beginning of Krishna consciousness is association of persons who are Krishna conscious. Such association is spiritual and puts one directly in touch with the Supreme Lord. And by His grace, one can understand Krishna to be the Supreme Lord. At the same time, one can really understand the constitutional position of the living entity and how the living entity forgets Krishna and becomes entangled in the material activities. By gradual development of Krishna consciousness in good association, the living entity can understand that due to forgetfulness of Krishna, he has become conditioned by the laws of the material nature. He can also understand that his or this human form of life is an opportunity to regain Krishna consciousness and that it should be fully utilized to attain the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord. Many subjects have been discussed in this chapter. The man is in distress, the inquisitive man, the man in want of material necessities, knowledge of Brahman, knowledge of Paramatma, liberation from birth, death, diseases, and worship of the Supreme Lord. However, he who is actually elevated to Krishna consciousness does not care for the different positions. He simply directly engages himself in activities of Krishna consciousness and thereby factually attains his constitutional position as the eternal servitor of Lord Krishna. In such a situation, he takes pleasure in hearing and glorifying the Supreme Lord in pure devotional service. He is convinced that by doing so, all his objectives will be fulfilled. This determined faith is called Dhira, and it is the beginning of Bhakti Yoga or transcendental loving service. That is the verdict of all scriptures. This seventh chapter of the Gita is the substance of that conviction. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purpose to the seventh chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the matter of knowledge of the Absolute.
Chapter 8 Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are primitive activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me. Report. In this chapter, Lord Krishna answers the different questions of Arjuna, beginning with, what is Brahman? The Lord also explains karma, fruitive activities, devotional service, and yoga principles, and devotional service in its pure form. The Srimad Bhagavatam explains that the supreme absolute truth is known as Brahman, Brahma, and Bhagavan. In addition, the living entity, individual soul, is also called Brahman. Arjuna also inquires about Atma, which refers to the body, soul, and mind. According to the Vedic dictionary, Atma refers to the mind, soul, body, and senses also. Arjuna has addressed the Supreme Lord as Purushottama, Supreme Person, which means that he was putting these questions not simply to a friend, but to the Supreme Person, knowing him to be the supreme authority, able to give definitive answers.
That's good. How does this Lord sacrifice live in the body, and in which part does he live? O Madhuda, and who can those engage in devotional service know you at the time of death? 4. The Lord's sacrifice accepts Indra and Vishnu. Vishnu is the chief of the primal demigods, including Brahma and Shiva, and Indra is the chief of the administrative demigods. Both Indra and Vishnu are worshipped by yoga performances. But here, Arjuna asks, who is actually the Lord of yoga sacrifice? And how is the Lord residing within the body of the entity? Arjuna addresses the Lord of Madhusudana because Krishna once killed a demon named Madhu. Actually, these questions, which are of the nature of doubt, should not have arisen in the mind of Arjuna, because Arjuna is a Krishna conscious devotee. Therefore, these doubts are like demons. As Krishna is so expert in killing demons, Arjuna here addresses him as Madhusudana, so that Krishna might kill the demonic doubts that rise in Arjuna's mind. Now, the word Praryana Kali is the verse, and this verse is very significant that whatever we do in life will be tested at the time of death. Arjuna fears at the time of death, which are the Krishna consciousness, is supreme Lord. Because at such a time, body functions are disrupted and the mind may be in a panic-stricken state. Therefore, Maraja Vikara, a great devotee, prays, my dear Lord, may I die immediately now that I am healthy, so that the swan of my mind may enter into the stem of the lotus feet. This metaphor is used because the swan often takes pleasure in entering the stem of the lotus flower. Similarly, the mind, the pure devotee is drawn to the lotus feet of the Lord. Maraja Kulashikara fears that at the moment of death, his throat will be so choked up that he will not be able to chant the holy names. So it's better to die immediately. Arjuna questions how one mind can be made fixed by Krishna's lotus feet at such times. Text 3. The Supreme Lord said, The indestructible, transient, and living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called the Self. Action pertaining to the development of these material bodies is called karma, or fluid activities. Purport. Brahman is indestructible and eternally existing, and its constitution is not changed at any time. But beyond Brahman there is Parabrahman. Brahman refers to the living entity, and Parabrahman refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The constitutional position of the living entity is different from the position he takes in the material world. In material consciousness, his nature is to try to be the Lord of matter, but in spiritual, Krishna consciousness, his position is to serve the Supreme. When the living entity is in material consciousness, he has to take on various bodies in the material world. That is called karma, or varied creation by the force of material consciousness. In Vedic literature, the living entity is called Jivatma, Brahman, but he is never called Parabrahman. The living entity, Jivatma, takes different positions. Sometimes he merges into the dark material nature and identifies himself with matter, and sometimes he identifies himself with the superior spiritual nature. Therefore, he is called the Supreme One's marginal energy. According to his identification with material or spirit, according to his identification with material or spiritual nature, he receives a material or spiritual body. In material nature, he may take a body from any of the 8,400,000 species of life. But in spiritual nature, he has only one body. In material nature, he is sometimes manifested as a god, as a man, demigod, an animal, a beast, bird, etc., according to his karma. To attain material heavenly planets and enjoy their facilities, he sometimes performs sacrifices. Yagi. When his merit is exhausted, he returns to earth again in the form of a man. In the process of sacrifice, the living entity makes specific sacrifices to attain specific heavenly planets, and consequently reaches them. When the merit of sacrifice is exhausted, then the living entity descends to earth in the form of rain. Then it takes on the form of grains, and the grains are eaten by men and transformed into sin, which impregnates a woman. And thus the living entity once again attains a human form to perform sacrifice, and so repeat the same cycle. In this way, the living entity perpetually comes and goes on the material path. The Krishna conscious person, however, avoids such sacrifices. He takes directly to Krishna consciousness, and thereby prepares himself to return to Godhead. Impersonalist commentators on the Gita unreasonably assume that Brahma takes the form of Shiva in the material world. And to substantiate this, they refer to chapter 15, verse 7 by this verse. But this verse also speaks of the living entity as an eternal fragment of myself. The fragment of God, the living entity, may fall down into the material world, but the Supreme Lord, the true God, never falls down. Therefore, this assumption that the Supreme Brahman assumes the form of Jiva is not acceptable. It is important to remember that in Vedic literature, Brahman, the living entity, is distinguished from Parabrahman, the Supreme Lord. Text 4. Translation. Physical nature is known to be endlessly mutable. The universe is the cosmic form of the Supreme Lord, and ambient Lord represented as the Super Soul, dwelling in the heart of every living being, every embodied being, forward. The physical nature is constantly changing. Material bodies generally pass through 6 stages. They are born, they grow, they remain for some duration, they produce some byproducts, they dwindle, and then they vanish. This physical nature is called Adi Bhutam because it is created to create certain point and will be annihilated at a certain point. The conception of the universal form of the Supreme Lord that includes all the demigods and their different planets is called Adi Daivatam. The individual soul, Jiva, accompanies the body.
The super soul, plenary portion, representation of the Lord Krishna, is called the Paramatma or Adi Atma and is situated in the heart. The word Eva is particularly important in the context of this verse because by this word the Lord stresses that the Paramatma is not different from him. The super soul, the supreme personality of body, seated beside the individual soul, is the witness of the individual soul's activities and is the source of consciousness. The super soul gives the Jivatma or Jiva an opportunity to act freely and he witnesses his activities. The functions of all these different manifestations of the Supreme Lord automatically become clarified for the pure Krishna conscious devotee engaged in transcendental service of the Lord. The gigantic elusive form of the Lord called Adidaivatam is contemplated by the neophyte who cannot approach the Supreme Lord in his manifestation as Super Soul. The neophyte is advised to contemplate the universal form whose legs are considered the lower planets and whose eyes are considered the sun and the moon and whose head is considered the upper planetary system.
Body. And whoever at the time of death puts his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Perform. In this verse, the importance of Krishna consciousness is stressed. Anyone who puts his body in Krishna consciousness is at once transferred to the transcendental abode of the Supreme Lord. The word smaran, remembering, is important. Remembrance of Krishna is not possible for the impure soul who has not practiced Krishna consciousness in devotional service. To remember Krishna, one should chant the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Incessantly, following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya, being more tolerant than the tree, humbling in the grass and offering all respect to others without requiring respect in return. In such a way, one will be able to depart from the body successfully, remembering Krishna, and so attain the supreme goal.
Text says, whatever state of being one remembers but quits his body, that state will attain without fail. The process of changing one's nature at the critical moment of death is here explained. How can one die in a proper state of mind? Maharaja Bharata thought of a deer at the time of death, and so was transferred to that form of life. However, as a deer, Maharaja Bharata could remember his past activities. Of course, the cumulative effect of the thoughts and actions of one's life influences one's thoughts at the moment of death. Therefore, the actions of this life determines one's future state of being. If one is transcendently absorbed in Krishna service, then his next body will be transcendental, spiritual, not physical. Therefore, the chanting Hare Krishna is the best process for successfully changing one state of being to transcendental life.
Thanks, therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of it in the form of Krishna, and at the same time, carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me, your mind and intelligence is fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. Report. This instruction to Arjuna is very important for all men engaged in material activities. The Lord does not say that one should give up his prescribed duties or engagements. One can continue them and at the same time think of Krishna and chanting Hare Krishna. This will free one from material contamination and engage the mind and intelligence in Krishna. By chanting Krishna's names, one will be transferred to the Supreme Body, Krishna Loka, without a doubt.
Text reads, translation. He who meditates on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering Him undeviated from the path, Ikoparka Rajana is sure to reach forward. In this verse, Lord Krishna stresses the importance of remembering him. Once memory of Krishna is revived by chanting the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna. By this practice of chanting and hearing the sound vibration of the Supreme Lord, one's ear, tongue, mind are engaged. This mystic meditation is very simple to practice, and it helps one attain the Supreme Lord. Fruition means enjoy. Although the entities belong to the marginal energy of the Supreme Lord, they are in material contamination. They think themselves enjoyers, but they are not the Supreme Enjoyer. Here it is clearly stated that the Supreme Enjoyer is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his different manifestations and plenary expansions as Narayana and Vasudeva, etc. The devotees can constantly think of the object of worship, the Supreme Lord, in any of his features, Narayana, Krishna, Rama, etc., by chanting Hare Krishna. The devotees can constantly think of the object of worship, the Supreme Lord, in any of his features, Narayana, Krishna, Rama, by chanting Hare Krishna. This practice will purify him, and at the end of his life, due to his constant chanting, he will be transferred to the kingdom of God. Yoga practice is meditation on the super soul within. Similarly, by chanting Hare Krishna, one fixes his mind always on the Supreme Lord. Mind is fickle, and therefore it is necessary to engage the mind by force to think of Krishna. One example often given is that of a caterpillar that thinks of becoming a butterfly and so is transformed into a butterfly in the same life. Similarly, if we constantly think of Krishna, it is certain that at the end of our lives we should have the same bodily constitution as Krishna.
I say a few things.
Yeah, please.
So, here in the Bhagavad Gita, clearly outline why we are here. As a karma, good karma and bad karma. Both karmas bind us to this world. Everyone, is hearing this new age nonsense. Well, I'm doing this for good karma. You're just binding yourself more to this world. There's one thing that doesn't accumulate karma. That's Krishna consciousness. It's worshiping deities. That's partaking in devotional service. That's purifying your karma. Because we want to get down to zero karma, no karma. Get down to no karma, we are no longer attached to this world. By continually engaging oneself in Krishna consciousness at the time of death, helps you remember Krishna. Because I've had a near-death experience before. I've nearly died once. And yes, your life does flash before your eyes. You see what you did in your childhood all the way up to that time of death. What could be better than leading up to your time of death is remembering going to temple, worshiping Krishna, eating prasadam, associating with devotees. Can you imagine going out that way? You're just boom, you're there. There are so many that are watching horror movies and gambling, going out and just having fun, in this material world continues to bind them. When it comes down to it, their activities, that's what they're going to remember. Time of death.
Ask a question.
Yes.
So let's say somebody watches horror movies for fun, and at the time of death, they remember a certain horror movie. Like let's say it was a monster movie. So like, will that person get a? Is there such a thing as like monster? Like, I don't know. Sorry. But like, is there such a thing as like animal monster? Like, will you have if it's like a, yeah. Is that possible?
Well, I mean, not sure. It's that there are some really bad hellish world out there that you can end up being born into. That's that kind of mindset. You know, it's that our mind is coming from time of death, and we fill it with this, sludge our entire lives, or we fill it with devotion.
No, I don't know.
Hare Krishna. So, just to add to the point just mentioned too, that we need to certainly revive our consciousness. We need to revive our consciousness. So, as you mentioned, uh, the very fact of a life when death comes, whatever has happened in the past is something which should be coming as the screen. And if we are in association of devotees, chanting mantra and being in a very conducive Krishna conscious atmosphere, that's what will make us much more peaceful and joyful to understand that the journey is quite like bright. That's what Bharat was telling yesterday in his sentence class. That he is quite happy because he knows that his journey is quite uh, like quite fortunate and quite prideful. But say for the materialistic people, they will perceive that everything what they achieved so far over their lives at the time of death would eventually come to a crisis point. So that way they will be under constant anxiety because there's nothing that they can take along with them at the very time of their death. So therefore that keeps the anxiety and anxiety. But rather they understand the higher purpose and understand that the real position of living entity is to become the servant of devotees and serve the lordships. So that will keep on him happy and be present and also in the future. So it's like a win-win situation in both aspects. That was really a pertinent point what we were able to do. So this got a pattern paper. And can I share one more point? Yeah. So it is with respect to yeah, it is a continuation of the fact that whatever state of mind that one carries at the time of death, one is sure to attain that stage in a snake's life. So in this context, an example of a butterfly is given. So it says that initially the fly, like it's like the caterpillar which constantly thinks of becoming a butterfly, usually turns out to become a butterfly. Similarly, as devotees, we must constantly engage or try to endeavor to engage in Krishna conscious activities. So that remembrance will help us get tuned or ensure that our frequency matches with Krishna's will. And that way, we can eventually transform the way the caterpillar turns into a butterfly. We can also make our life meaningful, workable, and live a life of purpose. So that's my thought.
I don't really have much to share, but I'm very happy with the subject matter. Especially
Quite diverse.
on the remembrance part. It's very important. Um, I was actually talking to Raji today about all this. Like whenever we're thinking about the time of death, we're not only that, but the consciousness we were feeling throughout the whole life is going to affect us. So it's very important that we like Prabhupada says a lot that we are being serious and sincere because this is our consciousness, this is our spirit soul, and it's very important to remember Krishna. So that's a lot. I'm with that.
Say anything in general,
Any insights that you may have?
did you say the mantra?
Of course.
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Krishna.
Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare.
Jai.
And one of the most beautiful things about the consciousness is harm. This was the section of the guru is being all the way back to Krishna. It's when we enter in the stage where we accept the guru and take initiation, we're connected to the whole lineage going all the way on back. So when we offer, just like Krishna says that you're entitled to do your duty, but you're not entitled to the results of your action. Whether you're a success or a failure of what you do, you offer everything to the Guru first. And the Guru is offering everything that's been offered to him, his Guru. And this goes all the way back to the all the way back to Krishna. So you have the entire lineage holding you up, pulling you in, taking you back to Krishna.
I don't have any.
Is that-
Oh, it's time.
Bhagavad-gita,
Nice. All glories to simple devotees.
This is the parampara